Welcome and thank you for standing by. All participants are in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's conference. Today's session is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the call over to your host, Nadal from the U.S. Census Bureau. Nadal, you may begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadal Gibran, and I would like to welcome you all to the Exploring Census Data webinar series, where we present data available from the U.S. Census Bureau by topics. And today's topic is on emergency management. This presentation will include the use of real-life examples, which will really give you an idea of some of the applications of the data. You'll also have the opportunity to ask our subject matter experts questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A feature on your screen. This presentation is recorded and will be posted in approximately 5 to 10 business days. Now, our topical series has been around for several years, and on this slide, we have included 2 links. The first one is to learn more about the series, and the second link is for easy access to webinars that have been archived from previous years. Today, we will be looking at how you can use census tools to find local data that are key to helping you plan, prepare, and recover when emergencies occur. You will learn about business and demographic programs along with the resources available to help you understand the community landscape. With that being said, we have 2 speakers from different programs will present data available on emergency management from both economic and demographic sources. Up first is Mr. Ryan Ricciardi, who will guide us through the American Community Survey, which combines both demographic and economic data. And next we have Mr. George Chip Walker. Chip will walk us through the My Community Explorer data tool and will show us how we can leverage census economic data for emergency management. Before we dive into today's session, please note we are utilizing our technology offsite, and we aim to provide you with the best experience possible. Should we experience any technical difficulties or delays during our session, please utilize the chat feature to let us know of any issues, and we will mitigate them as soon as possible. Again, if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and our experts will address those in real time. Now, on today's agenda, we will start off with a brief section about the U.S. Census Bureau. Then we will dive into the American Community Survey and the My Community Explorer. And after the presentations, we will close out with a final statement. So the United States Census Bureau is the federal government's largest of the 13 statistical agencies. We conduct over 130 surveys each year, with some of the most well-known listed here on the screen. First on the list, many people recognize the decennial census that is conducted every 10 years, counting population and housing. Next is the American Community Survey, which is a yearly survey of the nation's population. The economic census has a public sector, the economic census is the largest official 5-year measure of American businesses and is conducted in all years ending in 2 and 7. And then the Census of Government, which is the public sector counterpart of the economic census. And this is, again, an official 5-year measure of the nation's state and local government sector. We also have monthly and quarterly economic surveys, as well as annual economic surveys. So for the monthly and quarterly surveys, these include the nation's key economic indicators, and these are essential for tracking and reporting the GDP. These surveys include retail and wholesale trade, building permits, and imports and exports. And there are also 20 annual surveys that provide data for nearly every sector of the economy, including retail and wholesale trade, the Service Annual Survey, County Business Patterns, and the Annual Business Survey. All right, so when it comes to our data, a pyramid is a nice representation of the relationship between timeliness and details. At the top of the pyramid are the high frequency programs. This is where data are released on a bi-weekly basis with less detail available in comparison to the programs on the lower levels of the pyramid. Then sliding down a level to our monthly and quarterly surveys. These surveys are timely and include the nation's key economic indicators used for tracking and reporting the GDP. Moving down another step are the annual surveys. These surveys provide data for nearly every sector of the economy. Data from these programs are used for analyzing trends. Then we have the economic census. Again, that takes place every 5 years, and this is our most comprehensive data source for business data. Finally, at the base of the pyramid, we have our administrative data, which serves as the foundation of our statistics. A little bit about the economic census. So the economic census is a mandatory program that is conducted every 5 years, and it's our most comprehensive source for business data. Data covers 19 economic sectors that encompass 950 North American industrial classification system industries, or NAICS, spanning over 21,000 geographic areas. Responses are confidential, and it is an effort that is currently ongoing. This slide covers the information required from respondents when responding to the economic census. And as you can see, the information required includes the company's employer identification number, the company's physical location, the primary business activity for the company, and then figures for sales, receipts, revenue, employment, and payroll. And then depending on the industry that is selected, there may be additional industry-specific questions, which could vary based on the industry. Now, it's important to note that most companies actually do not receive the economic census. The economic census only collects data from businesses with employees. So, as you can see on this screen here, out of the population of 30 million businesses in the United States, about 8 million of those have employees. And out of those 8 million, about 4 million businesses will receive an invitation to respond to the economic census. And here we are to reassure everyone that the invitation to respond is in fact legitimate. This letter was mailed out earlier this year, and to the right of the slide is an image of the official letter. Additional methods to verify the validity of the letter are also available at our website at census.gov. So although the March 15th response deadline has passed, it is not too late. So if you've received an invitation, we are now in the process of non-response follow-ups. About the data provided. Now, the data is aggregated to create statistics, and this protects the confidentiality of our respondents. The data is used as a statistical benchmark for other business programs, which makes economic analysis possible. The results are free and available online, with the first data release planned for early 2024. And for those reasons, we want to let everyone know that your response makes a difference. Okay, so with that, I would like to turn it over to our first presenter, Mr. Ryan Ricciardi. All yours, Ryan.
Thanks, Nadal. Let me share my screen. Righty. Seconds. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Ricciardi, and I'm a statistician in the American Community Survey Office. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the American Community Survey, the nation's largest demographic survey conducted annually. So the ACS is on the leading edge of survey design, continuous improvement, and data quality. It is the nation's most current, reliable, and accessible data source for local statistics on critical planning topics. The survey samples approximately 3.5 million housing unit addresses each year, and these data are collected continuously throughout the year to produce annual social, economic, housing, and demographic estimates. The data collected through ACS helps inform the distribution of hundreds of billions of dollars in federal funds each year. And our estimates cover more than 40 topics and support more than 300 known federal uses, and countless non-federal uses. So the Census Bureau typically releases 3 different sets of data estimates from the ACS each year in the form of 1-year and 5-year period data sets, as well as 1-year supplemental estimates. And I will discuss these data products in more detail on an upcoming slide. Okay, so there we go. So the content collected by the American Communities Survey can be grouped into 4 main types of characteristics: social, demographic, economic, and housing. So these characteristics, either alone or in combination with other characteristics, can really help emergency managers develop an idea of the features of communities affected by a disaster. So of these 4 categories, we first have social characteristics on the left here, and that includes topics such as disability status, school enrollment of children, and language spoken at home. The demographic characteristics include sex, age, race, and a few other topics. Economic characteristics include topics like health insurance status, employment status, and income. And lastly, housing characteristics include topics like home, heating, fuel, the year the structure was built, number of vehicles available, and the others you see here on the slide. And so all of these topics shown here are used to produce more than 1,000 tables for local communities each year, and many of which are applicable to emergency management. So along with the numerous topics that I mentioned, the ACS also provides data for more geographies on an annual basis than any other household survey. So there are over 13,000 geographies for 1-year estimates, there's 15,000 geographies for 1-year supplemental estimates, and there are 776,000 geographies available for 5-year estimates. The image on this slide shows some of the geographies for which ACS data are produced and the relationship between them. The lower geographic areas fit neatly within the larger areas that are directly connected with lines. So for example, school, congressional, and state legislative districts will fit neatly within states, and they will not cross state boundaries. However, they may cross the boundaries of other geographies, such as counties or metropolitan areas. And you can also see here that the smallest geographic building block in the ACS is the block group. So with ACS data, you could obtain data on communities affected by disasters, whether it's on a fairly large scale, like at the county level, or you could hone in on community level geographies like zip code tabulation areas, or ZICTAs, which are close approximations to zip codes. Or you could look at census tracts or even block groups within census tracts. And so this wide range of geographies is what gives the ACS such a broad appeal. And I want to quickly go over an important aspect of ACS data, one that I briefly mentioned earlier, and that is that there are 3 different types of data products. You have 1-year estimates, 1-year supplemental estimates, and 5-year estimates. 1-year estimates combine data collected over 12 months, and they're available for geographies that, with a population of 65,000 or more. ACS 1-year supplemental estimates are simplified versions of the popular ACS tables for 1-year and 5-year estimates, but they're available for geographies of 20,000 or more. And lastly, ACS 5-year estimates, they combine data collected over 60 months, and they're available for geographies of all sizes, down to those very small geographies like census tracts and block groups, like I mentioned earlier. So these data products are generally released about 1 year after the data are collected. So for example, ACS data collected from January 1st through December 31st of 2021 were released as 1-year estimates in September of 2022. And the full detailed data release schedule for each year is available on the link you see on the slide, which you can also navigate to by visiting census.gov/ACS. And I'd also like to point out, we did just recently release our 2022 data release schedule. So if you visit the link you see on this slide, you can access the upcoming data release schedule. Okay. All right, so this map is a county level visualization of the 3 different types of data products I just mentioned. And this map shows you the releases, shows you which releases are available for all counties in the US. In this map, the dark blue counties receive 1-year supplemental, and 5-year estimates. These are counties with a population of 65,000 or more. The lighter blue counties receive 1-year supplemental and 5-year estimates, and these are counties with a population of 20,000 or more. And the yellow counties only receive 5-year estimates. These are counties with a population of below 20,000 people. And so this picture reveals some geographic variation. So if you're looking at county level data for, say, wildfires in California, you can find 1-year estimates for most counties in California. But if you're looking at wildfires in Western Texas, you will likely have to use 5-year data. In either case, it's important to remember to always compare 1-year estimates to 1-year estimates and 5-year estimates to 5-year estimates. And you should not compare 1-year and 5-year estimates. Next slide. Okay, so there are many different ways to access ACS data. This slide shows you some of the most common ways to do so, and I would like to highlight just a few of them. So QuickFacts provides selected statistics for all states and counties, and for cities and towns with a population of 5,000 or more, and it uses ACS data as well as data from other Census Bureau surveys and programs. Also on the map for emergency management provides data for disasters, natural hazards, and weather events using the ACS, as well as other Census Bureau data sets. And I'd also like to point out data.census.gov that's the Census Bureau's main data dissemination platform to access Census Bureau statistics. And so all of these data tools are available if you go to census.gov. From there, choose the Explore Data tab from the ribbon at the top of the screen. Then click on Data Tools and Apps tab to view a comprehensive list of all the tools and apps we have. And so now I would like to conduct a live demonstration of how to access ACS data using 2 data access tools, data.census.gov and On the Map for Emergency Management, the two that I had just pointed out in the previous slide. So with that, I'm going to exit out of the PowerPoint now, and I'm going to go to the live site. All right. So from here, you can see this is the main page of data.census.gov. And there's a search box in the center of the screen. You can also click Advanced Search. You can start typing here by geographies, by topics, or if you know your table ID, you can type that. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just gonna get out of there. I'm gonna click Advanced Search just to bring you to the next screen. And from here, you again can search for table IDs, topics, geographies, etc. Or you could also apply various filters and arrive at applicable tables. So in this case, I already know what table I want to show you. So the table ID is called S2504. And if you start typing that, you can see a type ahead will come up. It knows exactly what I'm looking for. I wanted to show you this table, this table on physical housing characteristics for occupied housing units. And so if you open up this table, and you can click these arrows to kind of collapse it, make it bigger, it provides some data on housing across the, for right now, you can see it's set for the entire United States. You can scroll down, it has the units and structure, the year the structure was built, how many rooms, bedrooms, vehicles available, home heating, fuel, etc. Now, I mentioned the 1-year and 5-year estimates and the multiple geographies. So if you wanted to get this table, but for say different years or different geographies, what you would do is you would, at the top here in this little drop down, you can see it says you've got the 2021 1-year estimates and the 5-year estimates and so on. So what I want to do is I wanted to show you this table for all counties in the state of Mississippi. So to do that, first I'm going to change it to 2021 5-year, because if you recall, counties, the 1 year is only available for counties of 65,000 or more, but some counties in Mississippi have fewer than 65,000. So I'm going to go ahead and change that so that I'll make sure I can capture everything. Next, we'll click Geos, which is short for geographies. Under most commonly used geographies, I see county here. You could also select other things, for example, metropolitan statistical area, census tract, and so on. I'll go ahead and click county. Next, I mentioned I wanted for all counties in Mississippi. So I'm going to scroll down, select Mississippi. And fortunately, there is an option, as is with most geographies, to select all. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and select all. Then exit out. Okay, now it says it's too large to display. This happens, so you'll sometimes the table is too large and it doesn't let you show it. I want to show it to you in map view. So as you can see here, the table is starting to fill out. I wanted to show you specifically the mobile homes, which is one of the variables. So if you click variables here and then you get the drop down, I wanted to see percent mobile homes for all counties in the state of Mississippi. That's a potentially quite useful fact for emergency planners. So if you scroll down, this is every variable in the table. So it can be quite a bit, but if you just got to scroll down and know what you're looking for. In this case, I mentioned mobile homes. So I'm going to scroll down. Keep scrolling. Perfect. So percent mobile homes, there it goes. All right, so I adjusted this table. As you can see here, I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. Okay, so as you can see, I selected a specific variable. In this case, it's percent owner occupied homes that are mobile homes. And as you can see in the legend, a darker shade of blue indicates a higher percentage of the homes that are mobile homes. And conversely, the lighter shades of blue and even the white ones are have a smaller percentage of mobile homes. So this is a nice option in data.census.gov if you want a visual representation of the data. You could also look at it in table view like I was showing earlier, though it was too large to display. You would have to download it as a CSV or Excel file to view it. So that was the first demonstration I wanted to show you. The next one I wanted to show you, it's another data access tool for American Community Survey data, and it's on the map for emergency management. I've got it open in the tab right here, so I will go ahead and do that. Open that up. So from here, this is on the map for emergency management, and right off the bat, you see this map here shows all of the current ongoing emergency management phenomenon, disasters, if you will, that are going on in the country. Now you can start searching. If you know what you're searching for, it's helpful. If, for example, it is a federal disaster declaration, if you have the FEMA number, again, that's only if it's a federal disaster. In particular, I know what I'm looking for. It is DR4569. So this is a federal disaster declaration. And I'm going to open it up right here. So this probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but this is the federal disaster declaration number for the 2020 California wildfires, which were some of the worst wildfires in California's history and in the country's history. They were quite destructive. And so as you can see here, and we can open, if you click on this, it will take you to the FEMA disaster declaration page for that, and you could open that up and you could read more about the 2020 California wildfires. But we have it open here. You can see in the map all of the affected areas. And you can see that these wildfires spanned the entirety of the states, from all the way from the northern part of the state down through the southern part of the state. And so that's a visual representation of it. On the left here is some data that comes from the ACS. So you can see here that an estimated about 17.3 million people were affected by, in some way or another, by these wildfires. Of those, about 14.7 million are family households and are in family households, sorry, and about 2.5 million are in non-family households. But if you scroll down, we can get even more detailed data about the affected populations. So, for example, if you wanted to see the race of people affected by these 2020 wildfires, you have a race breakdown, and so on and so forth. You can find disability status, poverty status, anything that would be of interest to you. And so this is data that all comes from the American Community Survey, and so you can see here there's the application of it to federal for disaster emergency management, sorry. All right, so this is on the map for emergency management. I'm gonna jump back to the presentation and finish out here. Okay. All right. Okay, so as I begin to wrap up my portion of the presentation today, I would like to provide you with some resources for learning more about the ACS. So first, we have the ACS main page, and this is a great tool to start with if you have questions about ACS. This page can be found by going to census.gov and selecting survey/programs and then selecting ACS, or simply go to census.gov/ACS. And the ACS website contains a wealth of information about the survey, about data products, tools for data users, and other helpful information. Next, so we also have a Share Your Story webpage section where you can read about all the ways in which ACS data are being used by data users. And so if you use ACS for emergency management or for any other purpose, please let us know by visiting the Share Your Story link shown on this slide. We love to know how people are using ACS data. And you'll also have the chance to be featured on our website. I also want to inform you there's a group specifically for users of American Community Survey data, and it's known simply as the ACS Data Users Group. And the purpose of the ACS Data Users Group is to improve understanding of the value and utility of ACS data, as well as to promote information sharing among data users about key ACS data issues and applications. So the Data User Group has a website and an online community with over 4,000 members. The website contains information such as previous conference presentations, archived webinars, and other helpful material. You can also share messages, materials, announcements, and anything else related to the ACS. And Census Bureau staff are also members, and we share program updates here as well. We also host ACS Data Users conferences, typically every 2 years, in order to provide an opportunity for ACS data users and Census Bureau staff to showcase their work and exchange information about their experiences using ACS. And so our most recent conference actually just happened earlier this month, and it consisted of a 1-day in-person event and a 2-day virtual event. There is some information available on the website, and more will be posted shortly from that most recent conference. All of the Data User Conference are free and open to the public, and information is posted in advance on the Data Users Group website. And lastly, membership is free. It's open to anyone interested in ACS data. And so to learn more, simply go to the website you see listed on the screen, which is acsdatacommunity.prb.org, shown here. And so as in closing my portion, I just want to provide you with some resources to connect with the ACS. You can sign up for and manage alerts on the ACS through our Gov delivery shown in the top right here. There's also a QR code. You can visit our website, census.gov/ACS, or connect with us on various social media platforms. We use the hashtag ACS data. We also have an email that helps support data users who have questions. That is acso.users.support@census.gov. It's also shown on the left middle here. We also have a customer service phone number that you see listed on the slide. And with that, that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I will now turn it over to Chip Walker.
Thank you, Ryan, very much. And my name is Chip Walker, and I am in the Deputy Director's Office of the Census Bureau, and I work with emergency management and disaster events, equity, and economics. And today I'm going to show you some of the tools that we use and that we make available publicly so that you can see the potential impact of disasters. Share my screen.
We can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, thank you. So this is the emergency management page that you can get to off of census.gov. When you go to census.gov, you can pick a topic, drop-down list, and you can just search you can find emergency management. And what we try and do at Census is anytime there's a major event, you can see the last one was the Mississippi tornado outbreak. And what we try and do is present data tools such as on the map emergency management, which Ryan just demonstrated, and a couple of other tools that can help you take a deeper dive into Census Bureau data and specifically for the geography that was impacted by the particular event. It's also very kind of neat that this webinar was today because the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, just this afternoon released its prediction for the 2023 hurricane season. And hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th, with peak season being sort of mid-August through September. So I want to show you what they're predicting for this year. So they're predicting what they are calling a near normal hurricane season. So 40% chance of it being near normal, a 30% chance of it being above normal, and a 30% chance of it being below normal. They're predicting 12 to 17 named storms. I will say something about the named storms. You may see some names on the list that look familiar. The list of hurricane names repeats itself every 6 years. So this is the list of names that they'll be using this year will be from 2017. However, anytime a significant hurricane strikes, that name gets retired and will never be used again. In 2017, you may remember, it was a particularly bad hurricane season, so there were 4 names retired and 4 new names added to the name list. They expect of these named storms, a storm can get a name without it becoming a hurricane, but they're predicting of these named storms, 5 to 9 storms will become hurricanes, and 1 to 4 storms will become a major hurricane. And a major hurricane is hurricanes are rated by their wind strength on a scale of 1 to 5, and a major hurricane is considered a 3, a 4, or a 5, where you would have at least sustained winds of 111 miles per hour. So what I want to show you is one of our tools that we call My Community Explorer. And this sort of opening just allows you to know how you can explore the map. And so we'll just zoom in on the map a little bit. And the colors that you're seeing are really central to what My Community Explorer represents. It's what's called community resilience estimates. And community resilience estimates are looking at the vulnerability of people and neighborhoods when a disaster or some type of stressor strikes them. Where you see these sort of dark or orange areas, those mean, if you look over here at the legend, that you have the population is estimated to be high with 3 or more risk factors. And I'll go through those risk factors in just a second. And then you can look at these sort of golder areas are 1 to 2 risk factors, and the lighter sort of bluish areas are they have a population which is predominantly doesn't have any risk factors. And your risk factors can be a number of things. They can be living in poverty, they could be 65 and older, they could be disabled, they could not have vehicle access, they may not speak English well at home. And then these factors within our small area group within census are calculated using American Community Survey micro-level data, which gives them a very high degree of accuracy down to the census tract level. And if you're not really sure what a census tract is, think about it as a neighborhood. That's the closest approximation to what a census tract geography would be. Of course, when you're talking about the resilience of a community, or you're talking about equity and identifying underserved communities, just looking at county level data often is not sufficient, because you really need to drill down a little further to understand what actual neighborhoods and communities may be suffering greater risk and greater stress because of a particular event. So with this tool, there's a number of ways that you can explore the data. You can zoom in on the map, and I'm going to do just that right now. And we're going to go over to an area of the country that was dramatically impacted during last year's hurricane season. Even though it was a little below what was predicted, it only takes one severe storm to wreak devastation on a particular community. So we're going to look at Hurricane Ian and Nicole, which hit the west coast of Florida and then traveled to the east coast. So did a lot of damage. And we're just going to keep on going down to this area where it came ashore, where we are looking at, back out a little bit, Lee County, Florida, and Hendry and Collier were some of the biggest impacted counties. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my cursor over here and click on Lee County. And the first thing we see are the community resilience estimates. And we can see right here that approximately 24% of the residents in the county had 3 or more risk factors. So that made them more vulnerable than others. We can see that 48% had 1 to 2 risk factors, and approximately 27% didn't have any risk factors. You can also scroll down a little bit and get a little better sense for where some of the things that we're measuring, how they look against the rest of the country, against the national estimate. You can see when they're higher, when they're lower, or when they're not statistically different. We also can click on this little arrow here, and it's now going to take us to the American Community Survey data that is making up the community resilience estimate. So we can see that 13.1% of the population had income in the past 12 months below the poverty level. We can see that 85% have broadband subscriptions. And we can see that there's approximately 490,000 people who have high school graduate or higher education. We can see that almost 5% of the households in this county speak English less than very well. That approximately 207,000 are people who are 65 and over. And then this Gini index is a measure of income inequality. And I'll go into that a little bit later in the demonstration. And we see some charts that we have here for you, and you can hover over to see what information is available to you in the chart. want to go back for a second to this first page. And you'll see up here where it says view detailed report link via Census Business Builder. Census Business Builder is another really rigorous tool here at Census. And we were able to connect on the back end to get a report that gives you even more data. So if I were to click on this link, now what it's doing is it has opened up a report from the Census Business Builder application for Lee County, Florida. And I'll briefly show you what we have in this report. We can see a lot of demographic characteristics, including 65 and over, working age, 21, if you may be interested in percent under 5. And then we have the race breakdowns that are collected through the American Community Survey. Then we come down to the social characteristics. So you can see all these various social characteristics, including percent in poverty, percent employed, percent disabled, and percent with health insurance. And we come down and we can look at some housing characteristics, again, from the American Community Survey. And we can see all these different things, including home ownership rate, vacancy rate, broadband internet subscription, median owner, household unit value, housing value, and other data that may be useful in analyzing a community or neighborhood. We also have business data, so we can see that there are 20,000 plus employer establishments. An employer establishment is a business with one or more paid employees. We can look at payroll, we can look at population per employer and other valuable information. We can come down, we also have measures of non-employer businesses. So those would be businesses with no paid employees. They could be mom and pop business. They could be a business like a hair salon where they don't have any paid employees, or a barbershop, or home health care, or someone who's doing some consulting work of whatever type of consulting may be a non-employer business. If you're looking at potential economic impacts of a disaster, you don't want to leave out your non-employer businesses. Then we have some other data that we actually bring in from some other federal agencies, including the Department of Labor, looking at job gains and losses and such. We have some quarterly business data coming in from another program at BLS, as well as the Census Bureau called Longitudinal Employer Dynamics. And then we have building permit data as well. And then we give you some comparisons to look at here across the various NAICS sectors. Right now, we're looking at 2-digit NAICS sectors, so we can see what, if a storm were to hit an area, or maybe it already did, what would be the impact on the sectors that are most important or most prevalent in that particular geography that you're looking at. We have some key ratios. I will say that if you see an NA, which you will see periodically through the data, depending on the level of geography, most often that means that we were not able to reveal that number because it may have led to identification of the business. And at the Census Bureau, above everything else, we take privacy and security of the data is in the forefront of everything that we do. And we have to make sure that you're unable to identify an individual, a household, or a business from any of our publicly available data. And we also have some business ownership data. So these are, you can look at the race of the person who owns a particular type of business. You're seeing a lot of NAs here because that information can't be revealed. And then we have some consumer spending to understand what are the spending habits of the consumers in that particular geography. So now I'm going to go back here to the report, to the tool, My Community Explorer, and show you how you can also look at data at the track level. You can simply zoom in and you will eventually see track numbers appear. And if we stick with our county and we say, This looks like a particularly vulnerable tract over here. We could click here. We see what the track number is, 19.15. It's in Lee County, Florida. We can get a detailed report again, like I just showed you at the track level. However, you won't get any of those business variables because that's too low a level of geography for the number of businesses that that are just in the United States. Normally, with our business data, you can only take it down to the county, place, or city level. And then when you get below that, it's going to be very sparse data, and mostly you're not going to get any data at all. But again, we can see that in this vulnerable tract of high risk, we see that there are 54% of the population has 3 or more risk factors. We can see that 42%. So when you look at this high number of 54 and 42 between 1 and 3 or more risk factors, you can see why that showed up the way it did. You can also see, again, 4% of the population in this census tract income below the poverty level, and the other same data points that we were showing at the Lee County level. Now I'm going to back out for a second and go to a more countrywide view. And one of the things that this tool allows you to do is you can add in emergency management layers. So let's just center this up a little bit here. If you were to come over here and click on this layer button, the only one turned on now are active hurricanes. There are no active hurricanes in the Atlantic region right now. And so you're not seeing any of those shape files coming through into the tool, but we are very active with wildfires. So we have weather watches and warnings, storm surge risk, and we have current wildfires. So I just come over to this eye and click on the eye. It's now going to populate the tool with all the active wildfires that are happening right now. We can see that there are some wildfires, a lot of them over here in California, all over the country. And what you can do is zoom in, and if you want to get an idea of what's happening in a particular geography because of a wildfire, once you zoom in, you can see the track level data where the wildfire may be impacting. You can click on the wildfire and it'll tell you some more information about it. So it's called the Orchard incident. We can see the community resilience estimates for Monterey County, which is the county that it's in. Sometimes you'll have up to 5 of these screens to click through, because sometimes wildfires, of course, can cross over county boundaries and things like that. And then we kicked over the next one. We're looking at the census tract data for that particular tract and the ACS variables that make it up. So back here again, you have all these different types of events, including air quality. I can click on air quality and tell you that there's been a lot of air quality issues around the country that are ongoing right now. And most of these are because of wildfires causing poor air quality. So let me just zoom in to this level. I'm going to go ahead and make this screen a little easier to see by turning off these emergency management layers, and show you that if you were to zoom into a particular area and you wanted to look at a region, you could come over here, and I'm going to pick there's different ways that you can draw a region. I'm going to pick the lasso. I'm just going to draw a region just like this. And what you're going to see happen is that region has now populated over here. So I have a region of 16 counties, and you can see the counties that you selected. And now the data over here in this right-hand panel is the aggregate of everything that's adding up here in these counties. What I want to do is come and show you one more way that you can explore data in this tool. I'll just have another tab open so we don't have to wait for it to populate. You can come over here and you can pick a county by first selecting a state. So if I were to select, let's say Texas, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select a county, and I'm just going to select Harris County because It's where Houston is, and it was dramatically impacted by Hurricane Harvey. So we'll pick Harris County. Now, while the map is building to zoom into Harris County, I will show you that if you look here for the state of Texas, this now shows you these variables for the state of Texas. We've now zoomed into Harris County. It's showing us census tract levels. We can see vulnerable tracts where you may want to say, hey, what's going on in these tracts? And do they need attention to make sure that resources and various things are applied in an equitable fashion and that you're able to identify potentially underserved communities. But also what we've done is we've activated these profile tabs on the bottom here. So I'll show you the first one. This is the economic profile. So this is the Gini index that I was showing you earlier. The closer to 0, the closer you have total income equality. And the closer to 1, it means the closer you are to total income inequality. We have households below poverty. We have households earning with their income below $75,000. We have some interactive graphs here on income to poverty ratio, total household income, and population without health insurance. We'll come over to another profile. This is the socio-characteristics profile for Harris County. We can see households with one or more disabilities of people living in the household, households 65 and over living alone, households without a vehicle, and households with broadband. And again, some other interactive charts, knowing you can see that Spanish, when English isn't spoken well at home, Spanish is the predominant language, but you can see you have other languages that if you're trying to deliver materials in a certain language, this can be extremely helpful, particularly when you look at language spoken at home at the census tract level. And then we'll come over to the race and ethnicity profile for Harris County. You can see the racial profiles here. And this map is interactive. If you were to click on it, you would be able to get other data that would pop up in the form of a pie chart at the census tract level. And you could get the surrounding tracts just by clicking here. And then last, the county business profile. So we are looking at businesses, as sort of I talked about before, at the employer businesses and the non-employer businesses. And then you can look at it by two-digit NAICS sector to see which are the biggest sectors that are occupying those particular employer or non-employer categories. Up here, you have a number of different features, including the ability to print, to share across different social media platforms. You can go in and you can have a table function where you can search for by county and get a geo ID and then get additional information there. We have data sources. So for all the sources that I was showing in the tool, you can go and find where the data is actually coming from, including the data that we pull for our live feeds for the emergency weather events. You can get that information here and learn more about the different data products that are in here: community resilience estimates, the American Community Survey, county business patterns, and non-employers. We have an about section, which gives you, you can take a guided tour, you have a video demo, you have release notes, and you can also open this up in a PDF. If you look at use cases, it's some different use cases if you're wondering a better idea. And the video runs about 7 to 8 minutes, which quickly goes through. I will say that we are updating this tool, and I'll show you that just in a second. Video demo and community resilience estimates. These are some of the frequently asked questions. And so you can come here and look at these questions that may help you understand better the CRE. So one of the things that I was saying is one of the additions that we're going to be adding in probably toward the end of June is the ability to get that county report from Census Business Builder just by entering a county. So if I were to enter Fairfax County and I want to see Fairfax County, Virginia, I'm just going to go here and it's going to give me a link, which then will link me to the Census Business Builder report for Fairfax County, Virginia, with all the rigorous information that I showed you there. And the other item is that we will soon have a guided tour in the map that will allow you to go through not just a video demonstration, but it'll take you completely across all the different steps that I demonstrated and show you exactly what to do and where to click. And with that, that concludes my presentation. And I want to thank everyone for coming to hear the Census Bureau.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your interest and time in today's attending today's webinar. This concludes the presentation. Thank you again, Chip and Ryan, for presenting our audience with the wide range of data that we have available.
I'm sorry, there is one question in the Q&A
Okay.
that we were unable to answer. Chip, can you answer this? Can you download shapefiles of the data from My Community Explorer?
You cannot, but it's on our list of things to do. So I don't think I showed it, put a highlight on it, but on My Community Explorer, there's a feedback button near the top. We definitely read all of the feedback. This tool, as others at Census, developed on an agile process, meaning that we release many different versions. So for example, we're in version 2.4, and it's barely been a year. So we've released 5 versions of this tool in the last year, and we will continue to make updates. Much of those updates are based on user feedback like yours. And so, yes, we would like to be able to do a number of different things. Some things we can't do. It's a COTS product, which basically means that it's an off-the-shelf product with a limited amount of configuration that you can do. But if we can do it, we will certainly look into it. Thank you for that question.
All right, thank you. I guess, are there any other questions from the chat or anything that we can all benefit from?
Let me add one more thing, Nadal. You can add in shapefiles in the tool called Census Business Builder, where those reports were built. That report is like, 25% of what that tool is capable of doing. If you leave a comment into the feedback section, we can get you all the links to that. And I believe we'll be providing that link to you later today.
That's correct. All right. Well, thank you again, Chip, and Ryan. Again, fantastic job today. I just wanted to share some information on this slide. You can follow up with either of our presenters. You can find their contact information, telephone, email, and their name and their area of expertise can all be seen here. Below that, you can find some resources regarding the decennial. And also for anyone that may be interested in hands-on or in-person training, we've got data dissemination specialists that are available to provide this service. So please take advantage of that. And finally, if you have any questions on other topics, please feel free to send an email to us. Our email address is census.askdata@census.gov. And with that, I want to thank you all for your time again. Thank you, presenters, and we hope you enjoyed today's presentation and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
That concludes today's conference. You may disconnect at this time.